What's up, guys? This is Coach Grant with First Down Training, and today we're going to be breaking down how wide receivers can run a perfect slant route. So we are literally going to talk about how you can run a slant versus every single coverage look that a DB is going to throw at you. So I hope this video helps you guys out. Hope it can teach you a few new things about this route. And also, fellas, if you're a wide receiver and you'd like to train with us this offseason, we are traveling out to 15 states across the country for 2-day-long QB and wide receiver training camps. Next up on our tour, we're coming out to San Francisco, then Orlando, New Orleans, Charlotte, Dallas, the DMV, St. Louis, Honolulu, Boston, Cleveland, Austin, Seattle, Newark, Denver, and Los Angeles. So if you guys are local to one of those cities or like to travel out, we'd love to have some of our YouTube community out to one of our camps. So check out that very first link below, fellas. We'd love to meet you and have you out there. Let's get started. So now, first route, this is pretty simple release. It is called a diamond release. This is how you would run a slant route versus inside shade press coverage. Most of you would be familiar with this, but I want to start out with this so we could get into the more advanced ways to run a slant on the next 5 clips. So let's play this full speed. So a diamond release is 3 hard steps at the outside shoulder of the DB to win on a slant versus inside shade press. So this is Calvin Ridley doing this right here. So inside shade press, his sole purpose in life is to protect the inside. Do not let the receiver run a slant. Don't let him run a dig. Don't let him run a post. So if our game plan is, I'm going to give him like a quick move outside, take the inside release, get vertical and break on a 3-step slant, we're going to be wrong. I cannot do that on that because, again, his whole purpose is to protect that leverage. We have to attack his outside shoulder and try to make him think fade. In those 3 steps, it's called the diamond release. So for those 3 steps that you run, you have to make sure that your hips and your shoulders, those are committed vertical. You have to make sure that you are running full speed. When I run full speed, that makes that DB think fade, and I cannot take choppy strides. I have to take 3 full strides to make that DB think I'm going vertical. If you guys can do all 3 of those things on a diamond release, you will get separation. Everybody's biggest fear is, what if I do this diamond release, coach, and I take my 3 steps, but the DB just sits? That's on us. We didn't do our job to sell the route. If you guys fully commit with your hips and shoulders, you guys run full speed, keep your stride, that will get you open on this. So diamond release is how you would run a slant versus inside shade press. So let's play this full speed, and then we could get to the more advanced versions of the slant route. So now, next example that I want to talk about here is going to be a situation where you would run a 1-step slant versus head-up press. So the only difference, because you might think, coach, would it be the same thing? It's head-up press or inside shade press. I have to run a 1-step slant. I'm just going to take a diamond release, right? No, because when you guys have to run slants, there are many different, and maybe not many different types of slants, but there are different timings for certain slant routes. So if you have to run a 1-step slant, do you think you can take a diamond release that requires 3 steps? No, because the quarterback expects you to be at a certain spot now. He expects you to be there off of 1 step. So you would have to use something called a wide step release when running a 1-step slant. So let's play this full speed. So this Michael Gallup does a 1-step wide step, gets the DB to jump fade, and is able to win on this slant route. So what is a wide step? So it's very similar to a diamond release. So you would take this back foot. So in this case, if you're on the right side of the field, it would be your right foot if your left foot is up. And then on the other case, if you're on the left side of the field, it'd be your left foot. So you would want to step wide outside of this DB's frame to get him to jump, get him to think fade. It's almost like the diamond release, but just in 1 step. So the same things apply. I have to make sure when I do this wide step release, my hips and my shoulders are committed to the fade. I'm actually stepping outside of his frame, and I have some speed and explosion. Those are the same 3 things that we need when I'm doing the diamond release. It's just we're cutting out the 2 extra steps. So when I do this wide step, you see Gallup, he takes this kick step with his back foot. Now, how many of you have probably had a coach tell you that that's a false step or that is wasted motion? And it's not. It's a lot of people hate on it because it's not the old school, just come out of your stance, flat-footed type move. But when you see NFL guys doing something over and over and over again, you can watch any wide receiver that plays on Sundays. They all have this in their tool belt because it gives you explosion. And that's the only way that we get a disciplined DB to move. You got some scrub high school youth DB, like he's going to probably bite on anything. But when you get a disciplined guy who knows what he's doing, when you get to the next level, you need a little bit more than just coming out of your stance stance flat-footed and just giving a weak jab to the outside. You have to attack him vertical, and you have to attack him with speed. This is not a lot of wasted time. It should be quick, and it should be sudden. Now, the reason why it gives you explosion is because you see how this loads up his hips. When you kick step behind, that loads your hips so you can explode and actually throw your hip to the outside, making the route look like a fade. So that kick step is essential. Now, some people are uncomfortable with the kick step, and I can deal with that. But what you would still want to do if you don't like the kick step, take something we call a prep step. So a prep step is where you pretty much pick up your front foot and put it down. It serves the same purpose. You don't step backwards. You just pick it up in place and step, and you push off of that front foot. It's almost like a jab to the inside, but it's not. It's a step in place. Stephon Diggs uses that a lot. He's not a real big kick step guy. But the kick step, trust me, fellas, I love that move. I think it could give you a lot of explosion. And when you get to that next level, you don't got to worry about a coach telling you that that's wasted motion. Let's play this thing again, full speed. So one-step slant versus inside, head up, or even outside shade press. We do that. Okay, so now, we get a lot of questions about how we would run a slant route against like zone coverage where the guy's off. So, honestly, pretty simple. You just run the route. You just take 3 hard steps and break on the slant, if it's a 3-step slant. But I want you to watch this route here because this is an incorrect way to run this. We're not going to spend too much time on this because I want to get to the more advanced stuff like we said. But trust me, this is something that you want to avoid. So he comes off the ball here, Anderson, and you see how he kind of slows down and makes this, like, that's almost like it's when you slow down, there's no threat of a fade, right? And maybe this was a 5-yard in, but guys will do this on a slant, believe me. So when he bursts up into this route, and you see how he comes off the ball explosive, and then he starts to slow down and break down with his feet. His chest raises up. There is no threat of a fade there. And fellas, when you slow down into a break, that slows you down out of a break. Everybody's biggest fear running a slant against zone like this is they'll take their 3 steps, they'll break, and this guy will come down screaming and kill him. But he will be in a pedal if we come off the ball quickly for those 3 steps. When we come off the ball and I start to slow down, DB starts to slow down, and he's got the edge to drive. Because when you slow down into a break, especially a short route, trust me, you have no speed out of that thing, and that DB will win that. So let's play this thing again, full speed one more time. Make sure, fellas, when running this 3-step slant against zone, we have to understand that you got to run fast. Okay, so now let's look at Odell Beckham here at the top of the screen. So this is a more advanced look. This is still zone coverage, but this is like a press bail scenario. So this is kind of a deeper slant. Now, some of you might have this in your playbook. In my terminology, I would call this a post, but I know a lot of you, because you guys asked me like, hey, I'm running a deeper slant like off of my 5th step, my 3rd outside. I would consider that a bang 8. But again, it's the same concept even if you were running a 3-step slant. So don't get freaked out that it's a little bit deeper than the slant that you run at your offense. So let's watch Odell right here. So he comes off the ball, he's running a slant, but he attacks the blind spot of a press bail DB. That is what we want to do. And it seems like a simple play. It seems like a simple route. But when you got a DB who starts out like he's in press and then he starts to bail out like this, he is exposing himself in my eyes. Anytime that you have to run an inside route, whether that be a deeper post, whether that be a dig, whether that be a curl, you want to threaten his leverage. He's outside shade for a reason, to force you to the inside. So the mistake a lot of wide receivers will make is that they see that press bail look and they'll just run up and run a lazy route to the inside. He has help to the inside. That's the whole reason he was outside shade in the first place. So we have to threaten his leverage, aka the blind spot or his weak hip, which is his front hip. So coming off the ball, it doesn't need to be a major stem to the outside, but let's at least threaten it. Let's just at least angle myself to the blind spot because that will threaten him, even in the slightest bit. If I could get him to just backpedal or open up and run a little bit, I did my job with this. So make sure when it's an when it's press bail, acting like they're going to be in press man, and they go into press bail, you want to attack that blind spot. Or even, it doesn't even have to be press bail. Maybe pre-snap they line up like this. Pre-snap he lines up maybe about 3 to 4 yards off, like he's going to bail out of there. Let's attack that blind spot. Anytime we see this type of look, blind spot when I'm running a slant route. Let's play this thing again, full speed. Great job by Odell angling his stem and then breaking off on this thing. Again, that would be, in my terminology, a bang 8 post. Some people run a little bit deeper of a slant because maybe it's out of trips, maybe the slot's running a slant and they want it to time up better. Okay? All right. So now, this is a more advanced look that you will see, and it's a little bit tougher to run a slant against this, but this is inside shade, man coverage, right? Press coverage, but he's about 2 yards off, right? So we're off the ball. He's a yard off the line. We have about 2 yards of space, maybe 1.5. What do I need to do when I run this slant? Now, some of you might say, oh, you want to go diamond release, right? If it's a 3-step slant. But if you just go straight up diamond release, we have too big of a gap between us and the DB. So let's watch what Olave does here. He closes distance, then goes to the diamond release. That is what you want to do. Now, some of you might be thinking, well, coach, like that takes too long. Like if I attack his leverage and then I take a diamond release to the outside, that's going to take too long. My coach is going to be pissed. I'm not getting off the ball fast. That's when changing up your route tempo comes into play. So I have this inside shade press coverage look. Like some guys, like they'll skip to this DB and close the space, then take a diamond release. That's when it takes too long, fellas. It's too many moves. But you got to close the distance. If Olave were to just take those 3 outside steps right now, yeah, we might get the DB to commit his hips, but at the end of the day, you still got to run the slant. You still are supposed to catch the ball over here. So when there's a big gap between the two of you, he could easily just flip his hips open and recover. There's no threat there. We are not getting skinny there. We're not hip to hip with the DB. So off the line with his release, he attacks him. He closes space first, closes the distance, steps on his toes, if you will. Then he takes those 3 hard steps, and the same principles apply. Hips and shoulders committed, running in full stride, running in full speed. But all he did was, like what I like to say is, he brought the line of scrimmage to that DB. He brought the line of scrimmage closer so he could actually get him to open up those hips, slip under, and win on the slant. That's textbook right there. Let's watch this thing again, full speed one more time. Great job out Olave, pushing vertical, getting that DB to flip his hips, and then winning on that slant. All right, so now, last example I want to talk about here is how would you guys run a slant route when you are a later read in the play? So it's the same thing, inside shade press coverage. But remember how I talked about there are different slants, right? You know, you have the 1-step slants, you have the 3-step slants, maybe a 5-step slant, and then you have like an RPO or like a second or third read slant. So the thing that you would want to maybe do is something we call a slide release. So what is a slide release? I'm going to play this full speed. So this is Drake London doing this slide to the outside. It's a more patient release because it has to time up with the QB's drop. So he comes off of here, and you see how he does. He does like a little bit of almost like a step back. You don't need to worry about that too much. But watch what he does. Like if I'm running like, let's say it's a first read 3-step slant, and I get this type of look. What do I, and again, the formation has a little bit to do with this because he's trying to let this guy release first, so he doesn't want to run into him. But let's say, for example, let's say it's just a normal formation, and you have a first read slant, and you have inside shade press. You'd probably go diamond release, right? You would go 3 hard steps, outside shoulder, try to get him to flip, and you slip under. Now, you still want to attack the outside shoulder. You still want to threaten the outside shoulder, but we have to be a little bit more patient with it to time up with the play, to time up with the quarterback's drop. Maybe he's doing an RPO. Maybe he's in a 3-step drop back instead of a catch-throw drop back. So what London does is he still attacks the outside shoulder. He just does more of like a slide to the outside. He's patient with it. He slides to the outside, gives a crossover, still threatening the outside shoulder, and gets that DB to jump. Because what does this look like? You know, you see it all the time from guys like Devontae Adams, Justin Jefferson. They'll come off the ball, they'll give this little slide and go. And this DB will sit to the inside, but they'll just beat him on a fade. And maybe London's done that a couple times. Maybe he shows that on film, so you have to have different releases in your tool belt. So we go off here. He does this patient slide to the outside, slide, gives this throw with the outside, commits his hips and shoulders. That gets the DB to jump and think fade, and he wins on that slant. That's a great job using that slide release there from Drake London. Let's play it again, full speed one more time. Great job being patient. Great job throwing those hips, being able to get in and out of this route. All right, fellas, I really want to thank you for watching. I really appreciate it. If you guys have any questions at all, don't hesitate. Leave those in the comment section below. It's always great to hear from you guys. We always appreciate the feedback. And again, fellas, if you would like to come out and get some work in with myself and my staff of coaches in 15 different states this offseason, check out that very first link below. We'd love to have you out there. I'll see you guys next time.